This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to another edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regari Financial. Glad you decided to spend a little time with us today. We're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement, as always, on the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz. Logan, hope you've had a great week.
Yeah, Ron, having a great week. Have a few cups of coffee with me here, and ready to give a good show.
All right. Well, as long as the caffeine gets you going, we're in good shape.
Exactly.
I got the same thing going on here, and I want to ask you about all the exciting things you did over this past weekend and this past week, if you don't mind, in just a moment. But first, let me give you your phone number to everybody. Of course, you have it, Logan, but some of the listeners might not. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call to get in touch with Regari Financial. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer and would love to have a conversation with you. You can set that up by calling 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. We'll tell you more about that coming up. A discovery meeting is what all that is called. And first of all, we just came through a major holiday, Easter, Passover, all kinds of things going on, and I wonder how your past weekend went and this past few days.
Yeah, it was great, actually. We went on a little camping trip up to Lake Hemet out here in our local areas, and it was nice. It was a beautiful weekend with friends and family, and it was really a good time I think it's nice to have those times where you just kind of reflect and be able to get some solitude up in the mountains, and it was beautiful. But how about yours, Ron?
Pretty much, it was quiet. Spent a little time with family and just kind of relaxed, and I think that's pretty much what I prefer to do. I wasn't up camping anywhere, roughing it like you were, but
Well, I wouldn't. I was in a nice fifth wheel, so I wouldn't call it roughing it. But it was a good time again with my sister and her kids and my family and all that. So it was a really great time. But it's crazy. I've been to a few different lakes now over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And it is crazy in California how much water our lakes are down. It is interesting. But yeah, it was a beautiful trip and really enjoyed it. Can't wait to get back out there.
Yeah, it really is cool though to be so close to the mountains and the beach and everything else. So hey,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Glad you enjoyed. And let me tell you about somebody who did not enjoy it so much. He was traveling. He was stopped going through security at Logan International Airport in Boston when it was discovered that he had a long blade inside of his cane. Now, this guy maintained to TSA that he had no idea that his cane had a sword in it. After he was questioned by Massachusetts State Police, which I'm sure took some time, he surrendered the cane and was then cleared to continue his travels. Don't know where he was going, but I'm sure it probably wasn't as exciting as what happened in the airport.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wonder if it was just maybe he got a used cane that had a sword in it and didn't know anything about it, or maybe he had bad intentions and got caught, right? You don't know, but that's an interesting one.
No idea. But I was thinking that's ridiculous. The guy was hiding the cane and, just didn't get away with it. But I had a friend who lives in Florida say that the same thing happened to him, and he honestly did not know, but there was a blade inside his cane. So,
really? Yeah, you never know.
A lot of people hiding blades in canes these days, I guess, and then selling the canes.
Well, I guess if I'm around some seniors and they got their canes, I'll be extra careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about financial planning, as we always do on this show, and you're so good at it and been doing it for a while here. And you remember this old show, the Andy Griffith Show on television?
Yeah, of course. Been a long time since I've watched it, but of course.
Yeah, what a tradition that show was for a lot of folks who never missed an episode. And I thought maybe we might be able to learn some financial planning lessons through some quotes from some of those incredibly colorful characters on the old Andy Griffith Show. You might recall that they lived in Mayberry, North Carolina, and it was really kind of funny. Floyd was the barber. Once in a while, well, just the other day, I saw a T-shirt somebody had on. It had a picture of Floyd the barber on it, and it was pink, and it said Pink Floyd. So,
that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. But Floyd was a really colorful character, and he had some colorful things to say. Once he said, "Time heals everything." You know who said that? My Latin teacher in barber college.
That's quite funny. I mean, it's probably pretty unclear why you had a Latin teacher at barber school, but the idea of that really does make sense. I think when you look at haircuts, I actually cut my own hair.
Yeah.
I'll let you know a little secret there, but it's one of those things I like it because if I mess up, the nice part is eventually next week or next month it's going to grow back, right? You can kind of do trial and error a little bit. But really the concept kind of works when you look at finances and investments. When you look at, let's say, the stock market, over a long enough period, the market essentially does come back and go up over history. And there's no real guarantee in the short term that it's going to look that pretty, right? Just like a haircut. But if your money is really exposed to high levels of market risk, make sure that you're in a right position to where you'll be able to, essentially deal with that bad haircut, where you'll be able to, if the market does crash and you get that ugly haircut, you're able to kind of withstand that downtime until the market does eventually come back. And I think a lot of people that we're meeting with, I've seen a lot of people don't truly understand the importance of diversification. And that's one of the biggest things when you look at a portfolio. A lot of people might just have stocks or they might just have bonds. They maybe have a 60-40 portfolio, right, between 60-40 in the market versus bonds. And that sometimes isn't truly enough diversification. You need to look at other things like individual stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, annuities, real estate, structured notes, bonds, cash, treasuries. There's a lot of different investments out there. And those investments are what is going to be able to help you withstand those market crashes and that downtime while you're waiting for your hair to grow back, so to speak.
Well, if you cut off a little bit too much of your hair, there's always time for it to grow back. But if you're getting very close to retirement, may not be time enough to recover from a downturn, like you said. So that's why it's so important to have a plan so that you can avoid those situations. Another colorful character on the Andy Griffith Show was a guy named Goober. Now, just by that name, he probably wasn't too smart. He once said, "Well, I ain't following you too good, but it sounds like I can't borrow the money until I prove I don't need none." Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, if you think about it.
Goober was right on there. I mean, he probably didn't have a lot of sophistication in that area, but he does. That does prove a lot of the general understanding of how borrowing money works. Lenders, whether it's a bank, a mortgage company, whatever it is, lenders are much more motivated to lend money to people that they believe will pay the loan back, or at least they don't need. That doesn't seem like they need the money as much as the desperate person.
Sure.
The whole goal of loaning money is to get repaid with interest, right? That's the whole point of loaning money. So I think that's really an important principle when you look at the position of borrowing money. Example, suppose you're looking to buy a car and you decided if you wanted to buy a loan or just pay cash. If you have cash, at least a good down payment or even enough to pay cash for it, the financing company will typically, they're much more eager to let you do the loan than someone else that doesn't really have much money to put down or much at all. They are more of a credit risk. So I think a lot of people need to look at the differences when buying a car and how to really make money, not make money, but really make understanding of how financing works. One thing I wanted to throw in there, a little financial wisdom, which of course is my job here on the show, is to make sure that I've seen some people, let's say you make $100,000 a year for income. I've seen some people driving $100,000 cars. I mean, that doesn't to what you probably can afford, right? That's not the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb isn't 1 year's salary on a car, So I think people need to be really self-conscious and look at what they're spending out there, because that's why you see some people that either have a great savings account and a good 401k, good retirement accounts, and you see some people where they just might have a really nice car. You need to look at the difference of how much money you're spending going out, especially on something that typically goes down in value pretty fast. So I would really take a look at that and really look at the basic fundamentals of lending money.
You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And again, Logan's number is 888-823-PLAN. On the old Andy Griffith show, Andy Griffith played a character by the name of Andy Taylor, who was the sheriff. And Andy said some colorful things himself. He said, "I don't know why I'm always getting my britches caught on my own pitchfork." And he was kind of a down-home guy with some down-home advice, but what in the world could he possibly mean by that?
I think what he means is most investors assume that the biggest risk they'll face is an external threat like the stock market crash, inflation, taxes, all those things that are in the news a lot that a lot of people think of. But really, the reality is the biggest risk any investor faces is really his or her behavior. And that sounds crazy for a lot of people to think about. But when you look at it, maybe it's spending too much money instead of saving money aggressively, as you should be. Or getting caught up in financial trends and fads. I've seen it all the time where we go off on a tangent in one particular investment, whether that's cryptocurrency, marijuana stocks. You see all these different things come up throughout the years.
Yeah.
The other biggest thing is panicking during a recession or a down market and selling investments at the wrong time. I see that most of the time. This is very true, where we are kind of our own worst enemy in some cases, where we get really caught up in fear. I think what I always like to say is, I know it's scary. When the market's down, 30 or 40%, and you have all your money in the market, that is scary. Yes, the odds say it should come back and probably will come back at some point, but you might not know how long that is. You might not know what the right direction is. Am I still in the right stocks or right mutual funds? What do I do? And so I think the biggest thing we like to point out is, before this happens, you need to make sure you have a plan. You never want to make a plan. I always say when there's a hurricane coming, that's not the time to board up your windows and get an exit plan and strategy, right? When in the middle of the storm is not the time you prepare for that. You want to prepare before the storm. And I think understanding diversification, understanding risk, and understanding having a plan really helps you kind of stick to your investment plan and understand the risk you're in, and know that maybe all your money isn't going down. Maybe you have some other safe money out there. You have other diversification, and it helps you not do that panic sell and not understanding, again, how much money you're spending maybe, or how to save money. All of those things go into a good comprehensive plan. And that's exactly what we try to help our clients achieve, is understanding what a financial plan is really supposed to do. An advisor, if they're just saying, hey, you should be in this stock, that's not a financial plan. That's just a recommendation. You want to make sure you have a plan that has multiple facets of assets in it. You know exactly what type of income you might have during different market conditions. Taxes, all of that stuff is factored into a really good comprehensive plan.
Gosh, so much wisdom in what you just talked about, Logan. I hope everybody was listening carefully, because all of that makes so much sense. And one more character I wanted to ask you about on the old Andy Griffith show on television, Otis. Otis was a town drunk, and he was always getting thrown in a jail cell, and they would just put him in there and let him sleep it off. But one time he said to Andy, the sheriff, he said, "I'm dead sober, Andy, but I expect I'll get over it." Can we learn anything from that?
Yeah, you can. Whenever your investments look like right now, it probably isn't going to stay that way. Having maybe a bad year with your investments, hold on. Brighter times are probably ahead. Having a good year with your investments, hold on. It won't stay that way forever. I think things are always kind of up and down. And I always, talking with lots of different clients and prospects that come in and meet with us, that fear is always on people's mind. Whenever the market's good, we always say, well, the market's so high right now, it's probably going to go down, right? And when the market's down, we always say, well, it's going to come back even better than last time. So we're never really comfortable with what situation we're in. And I think that's really why it's important to make sure that you look at this investment plan, a retirement plan. It's over a 20 or a 30 plus year retirement. You're not looking at this for a 1 or 2 year time frame. If you are, you're probably investing for all the wrong reasons. You need to make sure that you're understanding that this is not a marathon, or this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you want to make sure you're in the best investments you have, best products, best types of situations in your financial planning that you're looking at for not a 1 or 2 year time frame, but over your next 20 or 30 years if you're transitioning into retirement. So those of you out there, if you feel like your advisor is not doing this for you, or not covering these topics and making you understand how important financial planning can be, and not just here's a product or here's an investment, give us a call. Come in for that discovery meeting. I'd love to spend an hour with you and really go over your finances and see if we're not a good fit to put together a comprehensive plan for you.
Logan, we often talk about the discovery meeting, and here's the number. If you'd like a discovery meeting for yourself, and this is a one-on-one conversation with Logan Sadler, 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember it is by using the word plan. Plan is so essential. You need one. 888-823-PLAN. You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler. That's the call you need to make to arrange that. Now, your conversation with Logan can be on the phone or maybe via Zoom, or maybe you might want to come into one of the offices in Hemet and Redlands. And either way, Logan Sadler will accommodate you, and it won't cost you a penny, won't obligate you to do anything either. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and we'll be back with more in just a moment on today's edition of the Financial Beat.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with the Financial Beat. We appreciate your joining us today. Logan Sadler is on the radio. Go tell everybody you know. Logan Sadler of Regary Financial, serving you wherever you happen to be in Southern California. There are convenient offices in Hemet and also in Redlands, and you can have a phone conversation with Logan if you like, or maybe a conversation via Zoom. But the first thing you need to do to arrange that is by calling this number, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. All you got to do is leave a message today with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back, and then you can arrange a convenient time to have your conversation with Logan. It's kind of a getting-to-know-you session. The way we refer to it is a discovery meeting, because he discovers things about you, you discover things about him, and decide if you'd like to perhaps work together. 888-823-PLAN. Again, that conversation won't cost you a penny and won't obligate you to do anything at all. 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call. Got a quote of the week here for you, Logan. I know you'll enjoy this. Tug McGraw once said, 90% of my salary I spend on booze and women, and the other 10% I wasted.
Well, at least he's honest, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the other part of that is, imagine if you would say 15%, right? Like a lot of financial advisors say, you would have been in a better spot. But that is a pretty good, enlightening, funny quote there.
Yeah, kind of. We talk about a lot of serious things on the show, but try and lighten it up every now and then. And
you got to bring humor.
Yeah, if that doesn't bring a smile to your face, I don't know what would. But pretty transparent, his lifestyle. Let's talk about things in the long haul. I mean, financial planning is something that should be done over the long haul, and the more time you have to do it, the better off you are, I suppose. It's never too late, but, the earlier you can start, it is certainly good. It's great that people are living longer and longer these days. We talk about longevity all the time. How can you be sure that your retirement plan is really built to last for the long haul? And Logan and I are going to discuss the financial impacts of a longer life expectancy. Logan, from a financial standpoint, what are the downsides to a longer life expectancy?
Yeah, that's actually a very simple answer. You have to make your money last longer. I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of people don't see is your money has to last longer. I did a little Google search here. There's some rough numbers to give you guys some ideas. In the 1970s, the average life expectancy was right around 70 years old.
Yeah.
You look at now, the average life expectancy, I believe, per Social Security and some other reports, is they're saying around 85 to 86. So you look at that, now your money has to last, 10 or 15 years longer. So those of you that are now maybe 60, what will your life expectancy be? Some of our clients that have been with us since the mid-90s are now 90 years old, and they're still spending money, they're still living. So a lot of the implications of that longer life expectancy is making that money last. I mean, a 65-year-old that retired back in the 70s only had to make their money last around 5 years on average, right? Yeah. Now, instead of having to make it last maybe 15, 20, or 30 years in some cases, really makes you have to build a more strategic plan that has different levels of protection and guaranteed income. I think that's what people are wanting. A lot of the ones we're meeting with that are coming in that work 30 or 40 years, they're wanting to make sure they're going to have a paycheck the rest of their life.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was a lot simpler. These days, there's a lot more planning involved, and that makes it all the more important to talk to someone like Logan Sadler at Regary Financial. Have you seen people, maybe the parents of some of your clients, who have simply outlived their money? And what are the impacts on them and their families?
You know what, I have. I think a lot of the time, of course, they weren't clients of ours, just people I've met with throughout the years that have come in. And I think most of the time what happens is bad planning. I mean, people never really took the time to understand a plan. They never established a plan. They just kind of said, hey, I got $500,000. I'm just going to do this with it and live off this much income. I should be fine. Well, the problem is a lot of people never adjust their plan. Markets, what I always say is if you're not reviewing pretty frequently with your advisor, or if you are your own advisor, you need to have a little meeting with yourself here and there, because things change. I mean, stocks change, equities change, investments change. You really need to take a look at your plan and see, how do I need to make adjustments here? Are we still good? Because a lot of the times, some adjustments do need to be made. Whether they're good ones or bad ones, adjustments need to be made to financial plans. It's not a one-time meeting and then you're good. You need to really make sure we're making adjustments. The other reason I think a lot of people have in common with running out of money is they really have bad investments, or they really don't understand how money works. I mean, investments are kind of simple when you're putting money away. I always use that analogy. A lot of people don't fail going up Mount Everest. A lot of the times they fail coming down Mount Everest. Coming down the mountain, we talk about it all the time on the show, Ron, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's a lot harder to come down the mountain. And what I mean by that is, if you have $500,000 or $1 million in your retirement account, it was probably easier for you to get there just putting money away than it will be, how do I withdraw money off that $1 million and make it last my whole life, to make sure that I'm not one of those clients that ran out of money? Because the impact, I think, was really your question there. The impact on your family is that, okay, well, now we have mom or dad that we have to take care of, and you might not be in a financial situation to take care of them. And I've seen it in some cases where it's unfortunate, but some people are just living off Social Security. They have no other assets, either had bad investments, bad advice, or didn't really take the time to get a plan together. And it could be, aside from it just being from an advisor standpoint, being very disappointing and very sad to deal with. But it's really a huge impact on a lot of client families.
Yeah, so many people out there, lie awake at night worried about outliving their money, and those are folks that you just talked about who actually have had that happen to them, and that's not a good place to be. Even for people who don't run out of money, for your clients, for example, how do you see their expenses change in their later years? Yeah,
I mean, I think the biggest thing is, in your later years in retirement, I think a lot of people forget about it. I have some clients that will use this concept, and they'll say, hey, they'll come in for the discovery meeting. I actually had this last week. A client came in and said, hey, look, I'm 60 years old. I'm getting ready to retire. I'll probably retire at 62. Me and my wife, we need about $150,000 a year in retirement. They save very well, put away, they had around $800,000 put away with some pensions and stuff. So had a good start to it. And basically we were kind of talking, and he said, I want to take out more than the recommended amount than I was recommending, because he said, I'm only going to enjoy it for maybe 5 or 6 years, and then I'll be older and I won't spend as much money, and I'll cut my expenses in half. That was kind of his mindset, right? Well, the biggest problem with that is, I always tell people, that sounds good on the top, right? When you hear about that from the start of the conversation, that sounds pretty reasonable. But the biggest problem a lot of people don't factor in is, I have seen a lot of people's expenses go way up in the later years of retirement because long-term care. A lot of people don't have long-term care policies or never thought about long-term care, and all of a sudden they go from maybe spending $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 a month to live to all of a sudden their care might be $6,000 to $10,000 per month for them to go into a care facility. Yeah. And nobody ever says, I'm going to go into a nursing home facility, right? It kind of just happens, and it happens very fast. And typically the best time to plan for long-term care is not when you have one foot in the door already, right? So that's something where a lot of people, when we're planning for this, if you want to take more money out, then maybe we need to position some money to where we're covering long-term care down the road, or at least figuring out how to position assets to where maybe a long-term care policy makes sense, or maybe we have other assets we could structure to take care of that. Because the thought process is always, well, my expenses will go down, but what if they don't? That's always my question.
I know you do a good job of addressing healthcare costs in this environment, and the thing is that these expenses are often increasing at a rate that's even faster than the rate of inflation. And I think people can plan on spending more for long-term care expenses than they actually dreaded doing before.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, like that number I just threw out, I have clients spending between $6,000 to $10,000 a month. I have some that are spending more than that, depending on where they're located and what type of care we need. But like you said, it's something where we don't really have a plan to keep up with the inflation cost of it. I mean, we could try our best, but we don't know what exactly it's going to do. But I always say having some type of a plan for it is better than none. I see some people where they come in and they're saying, yeah, Logan, my advisor that I'm meeting with, he has me in a 70% in stocks, 30% in bonds, and I should be good forever, right? I don't understand why I need a second opinion. Well, then I throw out things like, what happens if the market's bad? How will that affect the portfolio? What happens to your income? Also, have you guys even talked about long-term care? What happens if something comes up down the road? We need to at least have a conversation and talk about our options for that next step. I mean, there's a lot of other variables that go into retirement planning. I think the biggest thing is that long-term care aspect is something that a lot of people don't really think about it until their parents have went through something like that. Yeah. And then they go, oh man, maybe my kids won't take as good a care of me as I am from my parents, or maybe I don't have the assets to pay extra money, so I need to get ahead of that now and get a policy together or get some type of plan together for the long-term care, because the rates are going up, and so it's something where we really need to have that conversation. And what I always like to say is the rates are going up and your chances of going in there are not going down. So it's something where we just really got to kind of put our and I understand a lot of us have that ego where it's like, hey, it's not going to happen to me. Well, again, I just like to ask a question with a question, right? Well, what if it does? So if, like I always say, if you don't feel like you have the proper retirement plan, or you don't feel like you just want to come in and get a second opinion, give us a call. I'd love to sit down and go over what your current retirement plan is and see if there isn't any areas that we maybe could bring more value to you and make sure that you truly have that comprehensive retirement plan. So give us a call. Again, would love to spend an hour with you.
Logan, let me just ask you to take a moment here and explain what the Discovery Meeting is all about.
Yeah, the Discovery Meeting is really, of course, I love doing this radio show each week, but we do have a lot of you guys that are calling in every week and are wanting second opinions and are wanting to get a financial plan together. And that's exactly what that Discovery Meeting is for. If you're approaching retirement or in retirement, that Discovery Meeting is designed, it's complimentary. Come in, we'll spend an hour, and we're really going to take a dive into what your financial situation is. How many 401ks do you have? Do you have a pension? What type of Social Security optimization tools can we use? When is the proper time to take Social Security? What type of investments are out there? How do I combat market volatility? We'll go over all of that in the Discovery Meeting, and we're really going to take a deep dive into who you are and what your family's trying to do, and then we're going to build that customized financial plan for you. So that's exactly what the Discovery Meeting is intended for.
888-823-PLAN. And remember, that Discovery Meeting is not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything after that. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Call right now and leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back, and then you can arrange a convenient time to do this. 888-823-PLAN. You want to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about your situation. And it's important to point out that everybody's situation is different. As you've heard Logan say on this show before, there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to retirement planning. Everyone's situation is unique. Call this number right now and make it happen. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat, and the beat will go on in just a moment after this timeout.
It's getting to know you time.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Ron Stutz here, and Logan, let's get to know you a little bit better. What is the worst lie you ever told your parents growing up?
Oh man, I can't go into depth on that on the radio. No, what's funny? I was depending on who you ask, I guess I was a pretty good kid. I didn't really do too much lying. If it was probably the petty stuff, like, oh, I'm staying the night at this friend's house, it wasn't that friend, it was another friend, or a lot of those little lies. As far as I wouldn't call it a lie, maybe just a fabrication, right? If you wanted to sugarcoat it, but I was pretty good. I didn't do too many in-depth lies as far as that goes. Just more of those petty ones.
Yeah, we all did some of that out there, but now we're adults. We don't have to worry about that. We got to worry about our own kids and grandkids. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm wondering what lies they're going to tell us, right? That's
exactly right. You can't tell us a lie that we haven't heard about before. So
exactly.
That's the way.
And I was the youngest, so all my brother and sister had already told all the lies that I would be able to get away with, so I had no chance.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's our Getting to Know You segment today on the show. This is the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, striking the right chords in your financial plan.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, and the beat goes on with Logan Sadler, Regari Financial. Logan, quick question here for you. I don't know how many psychopaths you know. I don't think I know any of them, but
I hope not any.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them in my life. But psychopaths, I read earlier this week, are often immune to contagious yawning due to their lack of empathy. I know if you and I are having a conversation and I see you yawn, it is very likely that I'm going to yawn too. It just happens that way.
Yeah, I'm a pretty upbeat person, as a lot of you guys could tell from the show. And if I see somebody yawn, it still gets me. I all of a sudden am tired, and it's contagious. And I did not know that. Hey, I'll know now if I see people not yawning, a little red flag will go off in my head.
If I yawn and I'm talking to somebody and they don't yawn again within a minute or so, I'm going to worry.
No kidding.
Don't want to be around psychopaths.
No.
We don't. I think that may be the only time we've ever mentioned that word on this show.
Yeah, probably will, and probably the last time.
Probably so. Hey, listen, thanks a lot. You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, the show that makes sure your financial plan has the perfect pitch.
Welcome back to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, serving you wherever you happen to be in Southern California. His office in Hemet, another office in Redlands, and you can find him online at financialbeatradio.com. That's financialbeatradio.com. Logan Sadler has not just the radio show, but also podcasts and YouTube videos. We'll talk more about in just a moment. But the number to call to get in touch with Logan Sadler and arrange to have a discovery meeting is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler has all three generations of some of the client families at Regari he works with. Many clients have been with the firm for more than a quarter of a century. So we're talking about the long-standing career here with a lot of folks who count on Logan to help them to and through retirement. Logan, I mentioned YouTube just a moment ago, but 17 years ago, April 23rd, 2005, the first ever YouTube video was uploaded. It was titled "Me at the Zoo." But gosh, it's everywhere. YouTube is everywhere these days. A lot of folks depend on it and watch it all the time. But can you imagine the first ever YouTube video was uploaded only 17 years ago?
You know, it is amazing when you think about that. We use YouTube for everything, right? I mean, how to rebuild a carburetor, how to install a light fixture. I mean, you can find anything you need to on YouTube, as well as you could find funny videos too, right? Who doesn't love a good laugh? But I actually looked this up. It might be a little inaccurate now, but I looked it up actually a few months ago. I was wondering what was the first YouTube video, and I actually stumbled upon the one that you just mentioned, and it was crazy. It has over 226 million views.
Whoa!
So.
Wow.
Quite a few many views there, I would say, right? But it is interesting to think about YouTube, and it's funny because as those of you who listened to the show before know, we actually did start our own YouTube channel a few months back, and you could actually head over to the Financial Beat on YouTube and find our most recent videos on there. We do one video every week on different retirement topics. We're not instructing you on how to build a carburetor or do any of that stuff, but really about how to get ready for retirement, what's important with financial planning. So head over there, click subscribe, and follow us along.
All right. Again, YouTube videos, courtesy of Logan Sadler, and he does these in order to educate folks, and there's a lot of good information on there if you'd like to check it out. Hey, you talked about some mighty high numbers, and we're going to get some other numbers here on the show. CPI numbers were released recently showing the increase in prices since last year as a result of our current inflationary environment. And we've talked about inflation a lot on this show already, and gosh, it seems to be the number one topic or one of the topics of conversation with everybody out there these days. And I'm wondering which of these stand out to you the most. First of all, gas. Everybody knows if you've been to the gas pump lately, Gas is up 48% from a year ago. Oh, man, that's a killer, isn't it?
It is. There's so many of these different topics on this list here where it is amazing. Gas is up 48%. You think about those of you listening to this show that are out in California know that, it's not uncommon now to see $6 or $7 depending on where you're at, and it is. Who would have ever thought it would have got to that? It's pretty astonishing how fast that's gone up.
It's actually kind of ridiculous the way it's happened so quickly, but also,
that's a great word.
These are nationwide figures, by the way, not necessarily focused on Southern California, but nationwide electricity up 11%, beef, poultry, and fish up 14%, milk a little over 13%, eggs are up about 11%, bread 7%. Here's another big one, used cars. If you buy a used car today, it'll probably cost you about 35% more than it did a year ago.
No, it's amazing. Like you said, some of these numbers on here. And it's funny because I have a really good friend of mine who works in the car industry and has been in it a while and very smart and intelligent guy in that realm. And we've argued on that for years. I always tell him a car is not an investment. Well, unfortunately, right now he's right. Some of these people are making good money on their used cars, and it might be a good time for some of you out there that are selling older cars. Might be a great time for it. Those of you that are buying older or used cars, not a great time for it. So, like you said, you look at some of those numbers you went on there, and it is amazing to me when you look at, beef and poultry at 14% increase, milk 13%, like you said. So it's amazing what all this kind of stands out to me, though, Ron, is inflationary numbers are extremely high right now. And when you go, whether you go to, the thing I like about all those ones you listed is every single one of those, one of you listeners right now, all of those affect you. Some of you guys are buying bread, eggs, milk, beef, electricity, gas, fuel, furniture, rent. All of those on this list here are something that affects your day-to-day life some way or another. So it's just an extremely staggering numbers there when you look at the cost of goods and how much they've gone up. Do I think this will last forever? Well, I certainly hope not. Historically, these high inflationary times maybe only last for 2 to 4 years, depending on what type of cycle we're looking at. But man, it is staggering when you look at those numbers and really got to figure out how do we kind of combat this with the portfolio and our income and all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Just a few more I wanted to mention here. Airfare up about 24%. Fuel oil, boy, that's a big one, 70% higher than it was a year ago. Furniture, 16%. And one thing that surprises me here, and again, these are nationwide figures, 4.5% increase in rent. Seems like in light of all these others that would be a lot higher.
Well, it's funny because typically all you hear about is people saying, man, rent's getting so expensive, but I'd actually take that 4.5% number over any of the other ones, But yeah, that's a staggering list. To me, that's a really good breakdown there to tell the listeners right now where, inflation is a real thing. Cost of goods going up, as many of you probably already thought, it's a real thing. So it's something we really got to kind of get covered. And unfortunately, the start of this year, the numbers aren't looking any better. The numbers are still going up at a pretty decent rate, and it's something we really got to talk about and plan for.
What questions are people, some clients and some people who are not clients, what questions are people asking you, Logan, about inflation right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it may sound like a crazy question, but it's really not. A lot of people are asking, how does this affect me? I know I'm paying maybe a little bit more for goods, but when you break down inflation and cost of goods going up, how does it really affect my overall situation or my planning situation? And that's actually a good question to ask. I think it really depends on if you're working versus retired. The working people, yes, it affects you. Yes, you probably have kids at home, and you're still buying all of these things. But a lot of you guys right now are in a very competitive job market where you're getting good increases in salary or bonuses or something of that sort. So your income probably has gone up. Maybe not relative to that fuel price going up 70%, but you have gotten some increases. You probably can work overtime to make up for it. You maybe have enough time in your day to maybe get another job. There's a lot of different instances. None of them are fun, but there is other ways to combat it. For the retired person or people that are retiring, it is a huge hit because most of you guys are on some sort of a fixed income, and a lot of the cost of living adjustments on pensions or Social Security aren't necessarily high enough to keep up with that inflationary rate. So the question to ask really, like you said, is how does this affect me? For those of you that have fixed income investments or money in cash, you look at, I mean, whether you think so or not, on your bank statement last year, if you had 100 grand in there, it might still show 100 grand, but it buys 7.9% less, right? So essentially you lost dang near 8% of your buying power with that money. So I think that's what the questions that are being asked, and that's really what I like to talk about is money that's not growing for you right now or working for you to some extent. It really, really is detrimental and really kind of puts a hurt on there as far as what the overall impact is.
Yeah, and we're all hurting right now because of all this. And it's like you said, I mean, these things are things that we all need. You know, you got to eat.
You got to eat. You got to buy gas. You got to buy milk, right? I mean, all that.
All right. Yeah. Are there investments that tend to do particularly well during inflationary times?
Yeah, that's a great point. There's some. That's the nice part about investments. That's why we're not a one size fits all firm. We're not one of those firms. That's why we don't come on here every day and tell you you need to buy mutual funds or any of that. You know, because I think investments need to be personal. Everybody out there deserves a little bit different of a portfolio based off their needs, comfortability, all of that. But I think some of the numbers I actually wanted to bring up, when you talked about what investments do kind of during inflationary times, what might be the best ones to go with, you know, you look at stocks. Stocks historically are a good spot to put money. Equity markets, equity ETFs or mutual funds, those typically are a better spot to put money because over a multi-year horizon, they have a better chance of making more money. There's also, for some of you out there that say, well, maybe I have enough in the market and I just didn't want to take a bunch of risk with money, but my CDs are getting hammered right now because of inflation, right? Yeah. You need to look at annuities. Annuities are a great alternative out there that can combat inflation, and they tend to be, there's different types of annuities. Of course, we always talk about that. There's about 3 different main types. There's fixed index annuities, and variable annuities. I'm talking right now more towards that fixed and fixed index section where they typically do combat inflation or at least give you some more of a competitive return than some of the other investments without risking principal and having to be more aggressive in that stance. You also have structured notes and real estate. Those are really, I would say, the 4 or 5 topics that are really good at combating inflation over a multi-year horizon.
On the other side of the coin, how about investments that tend to do poorly during inflationary times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you look at cash, CDs, money market, bonds currently, those are just absolutely getting killed when you look at, you know, okay, I have 100 grand in a CD, it earned 1%. Well, that's great, but inflation was almost 8%, and I had to pay taxes on that 1% I earned. So how much did I really make, right? And same with the CD, or same with the money market and savings accounts. I have a little statistic here. Like I said, if you earn, banks right now are paying anywhere between 0.25% to 1%, depending on what bank you're going to go to for CDs. So if you go in there with 200,000 and want to tie it up for a year or two, that's about what you're looking at. Some pay a little bit more or a little bit less, but that's not a really good spot to combat inflation. The other one is I pulled up the bonds, you know, the Vanguard Total Bond Index. So that what that does is goes over, which is actually a pretty good fund, I might say, but it goes over the top bond holdings in all the different sectors. And Vanguard, most of you listening know of Vanguard. They're a great company, been around a long time, but that just goes over the Vanguard Total Bond Index. That one over the 1 year is down around 4%. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you look, that's not a good spot to combat inflation. Over a 5-year period, that's only averaging right around 1 or 2%. So you really got to kind of get crafty nowadays and look at where should we be putting money during this high inflationary time to really combat it if it doesn't continue after this year, or if it keeps continuing. How do we position our assets to where we're not, all of our assets aren't losing money either by loss of principal or by loss of inflation cost?
So much strategy involved, and that's another reason you need to talk to Logan Sadler. And Logan, just one more question on the subject of inflation today. What is the most important lesson that you want people to learn about inflation and their financial planning?
No, that's a great point, Ron. I think the biggest takeaway I always tell for people is that I'm not trying to scare you. That's not my style. I'm not trying to scare you into becoming a client or make the phone call. You know, but my biggest thing is we need to be aware of inflation. It's something that is always going to be there. I mean, inflation never really goes away. Sometimes it's historically not nearly this high. Sometimes it's in the 2 to 3% range, and so typically it's not at 7 or 8%. But the biggest thing is you need to make sure that when you're building out an investment plan or a retirement plan, you have some inflation protection built in. There's several different ways to do that, like I mentioned, through different stocks, equities, annuities, structured notes, real estate investments. There's a lot of different ways to build those in the plan, but I think the hardest part is trying to figure out which one's the right one for you. Which one of those investments is a good mix to have in your portfolio. And like I say, if you feel that your advisor isn't talking enough about this or hasn't really covered this in your plan, or maybe you don't have an advisor, give us a call. I'd love to sit down with you and go over how we're helping our clients solve for this problem that's a really big problem for a lot of people, which is called inflation. So give us a call. I'd love to come in, spend an hour with us, either on phone call or via Zoom or in person, and really take a deep dive into how we're helping our clients position their assets and their retirement funds to last and combat this inflationary time we're currently in.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. That is their number to call to get a discovery meeting going with Logan Sadler. And when you do have that conversation, it's going to be with Logan, the same guy you hear on the radio show, on the podcast, on the YouTube channel. Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. 888-823-PLAN. Remember also that the folks at Regari have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, and Medicare specialists to help offer well-rounded guidance on all things financial for their clients. It's not just about money, it's about lifestyle as well. That is why it's so important to get to know Logan. He can get to know you and find out what your wants and desires are when it comes to retirement. Getting you to and through retirement. That's what it's all about. Logan Sadler's number, one more time, 888-823-PLAN. There's more coming up on the other side of this timeout on The Financial Beat.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is The Financial Beat.
Welcome back to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. Logan has two convenient offices, Hemet and Redlands. Wherever you are in Southern California, we hope you will avail yourself of the opportunity to call and get a discovery meeting going. Now, this can be on the phone or via Zoom or some other form of technology, or you might want to come into one of the offices. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. It's kind of a getting to know you session. You discover things about Logan, he discovers things about you, and you can decide if you'd like to work together. Logan works with 3 different generations of some of the client families at Regari. Many of those clients have been with the firm for more than a quarter of a century. A lot of folks all over Southern California and beyond count on Regari Financial to get them to and through retirement. And Logan Sadler is anxious to talk to you. All you got to do is call this number, leave your name and phone number, 888-823-PLAN. We appreciate your listening to the show today. And Logan, I know that in addition to this radio show, you have YouTube videos out there that we discussed earlier, but what about your podcasts? How do folks access those?
Yeah, the best part about it is you can head over to wherever you download podcasts. You can go over to Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all the major providers, and you can type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and there's over 50 episodes that are recorded and uploaded on there weekly for you to listen to whenever it's convenient for you, whether you're traveling or in the car or at the gym. You can check out the newest episodes of The Financial Beat.
All right. Yeah, lots of good ways to get information from Logan Sadler, and you notice that all of that is absolutely free information. Same thing goes for the discovery meeting. You can have that without paying 1 penny. More on that a little later. Let's go to the mailbag here. We have a good question today. First of all, from Annie in San Jose. Annie says, my husband and I have been separated for almost 4 years now, but we both wanted to avoid filing for divorce. He's the one who moved out. I've been living in the house. He's now saying that I should buy out his half of the house so that we can at least be fully separated financially, even if we don't file for divorce. Is it worth pulling money out of my 401k in order to do this?
Yeah, a great question, Annie. I wouldn't do anything yet. I would definitely, what I always recommend with divorce is it's really important that a lot of people try to do this on their own. I would really recommend getting a good attorney involved. But what I always like to say is I wouldn't do anything about moving money around, especially IRA or 401k money, because then we have to look at taxes, right? So before doing anything, I would really look at what other assets you have, what assets he has, and really make sure we're doing the most efficient thing. I always like to say is, I get it, you were married to him for a while, and it's something where no one's trying to screw anybody or do anything wrong. The biggest thing is I want to look at what's fair, because giving taxable money, you paying the taxes on it, you're going to have to take more money out to net that amount to pay off the house, and he's probably not calculating that in. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. I would really want to make sure that we looked at other assets, looked at his assets, and have a good lawyer involved to where we're making sure we're doing this the right way going in, because this isn't something where, and I've seen it, where clients come back, a year or two ago and say, hey, was this a good idea? And it's like, well, no, it wasn't a good idea, and they didn't consult anybody or didn't have any counsel on their side. So definitely make sure that you have a qualified attorney and get us in the loop on that. I would love to be able to kind of give you an outside view and advise on what's the best situation to move forward with there.
Yeah, Annie, very important to make the right decision as far as all this goes. And again, the number to call, Regary Financial, and have a conversation with Logan about this if you like, 888-823-PLAN. Next question here is from Beth in Redlands. And Beth says, I'm trying to help out a young couple in our church who seems to have trouble with money management. What are the most important investing tips that I should be giving them?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And appreciate you writing in, and I'm always there to help educate younger people. And again, our niche really is retirement planning and people that are approaching retirement. But of course, I typically understand the importance of investment philosophies and really how to get started. What I would tell them, Beth, is it's nothing fancy. I think everybody, when you talk to them about investing or money management, they always want that inside, what's going on? What can I do better to triple my return or do this, that, or the other? And what I have to say is I'll list out a few different instances here in what I call kind of investing 101. None of them are that sexy or that crazy or that out of the box. They're very simple philosophies. The biggest thing I would say is, number one is consistency. If you're going to put away $50, $100, $500, or $5,000 per month, whatever the amount is, doing that consistently over a period of time. The next thing would be, nothing good happens overnight, right? That's a good old saying there. But making sure that you understand that the return on your investment might be over a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year time frame is where you're going to see that consistency and that return pay off over the long run. The next thing is, don't go outside your budget. A lot of people that are younger, I'm giving example after example on the show, make $100,000 a year, they spend $105,000 a year, right? So it's kind of hard to put money away when you're over leveraging yourself. So understanding what your budget is, if you haven't done a budget, get a budget together. It's really important to where you and your wife or you and your husband get a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and really make sure you've established what your budget is, what your monthly expenses, and then make sure you set up automatic savings.
All right. Beth, great question. You were going to say? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, the last thing I was going to say is know your risk tolerance. I think that's the most important thing. So those 3 or 4 things are very, very crucial. And I'd be happy to pass along some more knowledge. And again, some of our YouTube videos go over how to start investing and what's a really good importance. But good for you, Beth, trying to help that younger community.
A really good point. And thank you so much for sharing all that information, Logan. One more question here today is from Philip in Menifee. And Philip says, I'm 65 and was about to start my Social Security, but at the last minute, the Social Security Administration told me that I can instead start the benefit from my deceased wife and wait to start my own benefit later. Is there any reason that I shouldn't do this?
Yeah, great question there, Philip. And it's funny, I've been doing a lot of the content we've been getting ready for on our YouTube channel was actually on Social Security, because there's a lot of instances like this that a lot of people aren't aware of. And good for you for calling Social Security directly, and good for them for bringing this up, because yeah, it's a great thing. Typically how it does is you actually get to delay your benefit until your full retirement age or till whenever you want to draw it, and use your spousal benefit during the time being. So there is that's a great built-in part of Social Security, and I would definitely probably recommend that route. Again, give us a call. I'd love to look over what other assets and other income we have and how that looks, but that typically is a great benefit to really kind of help supplement Social Security and let yours grow for a little while.
Gosh, a lot of people have some very important questions to ask, and we appreciate Annie and Beth and Philip sending in those questions. And
great questions.
Logan, there are other folks out there with questions who might want to submit them. How do they do that?
Yeah, you could basically go over to regaryfinancial.com and go on there, and you could actually click an appointment on there. You could send messages and all that, or go onto our videos on the YouTube channel, and you can click on our videos and tell me which content you want us to answer next on a video or for us to cover on the radio, and we'd be happy to get to those.
You might even hear your question on the radio show here. You never know.
You never know.
Logan, I know a lot of folks out there are going to make that phone call and get the discovery meeting that we talk about so often. What kind of things do they need to prepare for before they have a discovery meeting with you?
Well, I think the biggest part of that discovery meeting, what you need to prepare for on your end, is really just kind of getting into the mindset of, am I looking for an advisor that really wants to look at the big picture? I'm not one of those advisors where I say, here's the best stock of the day, or here's what the best investment trend of this week is. Are you looking for an advisor that really wants to understand you and your family and help establish long-term goals? I think that is the biggest thing we bring to the table, is looking at more than just investments. We look at tax planning, we look at investment planning, healthcare planning, legacy planning, as well as, most importantly, income planning. So we look at more than just what the best investment is for the day. We look at what is the best investment lineup and what other approaches can we build in to the retirement plan. If that's what you're looking for, then that was really the hardest part right there. The next part is you come in for that meeting, you bring your statements, and our team will tell you exactly what you need to bring to the first appointment, that discovery meeting. And it's really just a nice, pleasant conversation for us to get to know each other and see if we're going to be a good fit moving forward.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN, your number to call to get that discovery meeting going. You don't need to talk to anybody today. Just call and leave a message with your name and phone number, and you'll get a call back first part of the week, and then you can arrange a time to have your conversation with Logan. Could be a phone call, could be a Zoom connection, or maybe you might want to come into the office, either in Hemet or Redlands. Either way, Logan will accommodate you, and it won't cost you a penny, won't obligate you to do anything at all. A discovery meeting is what it's called. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler. And Logan, it's been fun. You passed along a lot of great information today, and I'll tell you, I know you're going to get a lot of phone calls, and I'm looking forward to hearing about those perhaps next week.
Yeah, each and every one of you that call in and listen to the radio show, of course, we always appreciate the support and really enjoy doing this for you, and look forward to bringing some great education and some good value to you guys next week. We'll talk with you guys all soon.
Once again, that phone number, 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for anyone. All information discussed is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of BD Financial Group and do not necessarily represent the views of Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult with your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and BD Financial Group are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.